get lots of requests by local artists and writers to promote their latest work, and today is no exception. Former Stoke-on-Trent English teacher PaulFox is celebrating the publication of his 4th anthology of comic poems, Going for the Juggler. The book represents the best of his work and features some brand new poems as well. And earlier on I spoke to Paul and asked him why he'd written book number 4.
Well, the first 3 have sold out. That's why there's a 4th, really. It's a compilation, this. I go out and do this poetry reading stuff to people who are not expecting it, perhaps, and obviously terrified of the word poetry. I mean, it's the sort of thing that inspires terror in most people. And yet everybody remembers a poem they liked, and usually it's one that rhymed.
Yes.
And usually it's one they can remember for some reason. What I'm trying to do is create poems that people, A, will remember, and B, that rhyme, and C, that they understand. The nice thing about it is that when I stand in front of an audience of 50, 100, I've stood in front of 700, actually.
Wow.
When you read it out, the question is it funny? Right? And when you're in front of a big audience like that, if it's not funny, you know.
So how did you get into this? I mean, you know, when did you suddenly wake up and think, I know?
When I was young, I was very, very foolish. And I became an English teacher in Longton, a school called Bishop Bright High School, which later became St Thomas More High School.
Mm-hmm.
And kids love poetry, actually. You know, you start them off with some poetry they like. And then the moment they've got them to like it, you say, well, there isn't any more stuff like that. We're going to do T.S. Eliot today. And you bore the pants off them. I mean, people do pretend they like poetry. Every October the 23rd, we have National Poetry Day, and people say, oh, yes, poetry's making a comeback. They say this on the BBC. I've been here. And it never does.
So this is your 4th book, like you say. The other 3 were sellouts.
Yep.
So you're doing something that people want. There is a market, even though we all pretend to like poetry for that one day. There is a market for this sort of thing.
Yeah, I go around and give talks to various people, WIs, U3As.
So what's the book called, then?
The book's called Going for the Juggler.
Right. So have we got a couple of little examples?
Here's a particularly bad example.
Okay.
Right. It's called Pantomime Poem, which I thought would be relevant since there are plenty of pantomimes going on.
Yeah.
Richard Potts had lots of spots. They plagued him like a curse. And though he'd pray they'd go away, instead they grew much worse. When he walked down the highway, the passers-by were sick. Small children ran ahead and screamed, "Look out, it's Spotted Dick!" His girlfriends always broke his heart, so he avoided marriage. At night he'd drive the city streets, inside his Acne carriage.
Oh.
He thought he'd suffered all he could, but something new arose. It was the most enormous boil which grew upon his nose. Disfigured by this fateful blow, he felt so bitter he went to a famous chemist's where he sought a remedy. But as he waited to get served, the beastly boil it blew and killed the poor man who had stood before him in the queue. And though this sad and tragic tale is one Dick still disputes, the next day's paper's headlines read, "Man killed by puss in boots."
But you see, my 11-year-old would love that. Absolutely love that.
There are people who, when I go a second and third time to places, recite these to me.
But that's brilliant, though. That's all you, as somebody who writes, that's all you can ask for, really, isn't it?
It is, yeah. I really like that. But it's getting it known.
So the book's out now then, Paul?
It is, yes. It's called Going for the Juggler, and you can get it from shops, believe it or not.
Can you?
Yes, which is